Hey everyone, today is 1 year since we launched. Thank you all for being part of this community. We appreciate you all. We've got thousands of community members. We've got 5 million views across platforms. We've released 81 podcast episodes. We've got 9 events. We've collaborated with some household names, including HSBC Innovation Banking, Sky, Soho House, Barclays, and so many more. We can announce our next event is actually going to be at Barclays Rise on November the 8th. And that's a fintech panel. So it's got founders who are basically changing things up to help people with personal finance. And they're trying to make it more accessible because so often it's only people who, from certain backgrounds, who've been able to access many of these financial tools. And that means that other people are behind. And because they're not able to gain access to these different things, then they keep behind, and it keeps this entrenchment of the rich stay rich and the poor stay poor, which is obviously not something we like. So we've got also one more ticket left for TEDx Chigwell on Saturday. That's organised by Ama, so it's not a Bay HQ event. When I say Ama, that's me. So if you want to snap that up, then message me. Let's get it going. So we've got a bunch of different events coming up. So podcast this week, just gone, was Hussein Kanji on Friday, who's a partner at Hoxton Ventures. And we talked about his journey from going from somebody who wanted to be a journalist in the early days to starting his own company, to working for some massive companies, to working for venture capital, then starting his own company, venture capital fund, which invested in the likes of Deliveroo and Darktrace. So you might not have heard of Darktrace, but they've actually got 500 million in average revenue a year. We also released a video of our event with HSBC Innovation Banking, where we had Dimple, Jeff, and Jay Goodrow on a panel. And you can just see at the beginning in particular, where when everybody comes on, then everybody's clapping, and it's just really lovely to see like how much the community supported each other there. So that was a great event. And then we also had our second lab podcast last week, which was with Abhishek Lahoti. So Abhishek is the head of platform at Highland Ventures, and he was talking about that head of platform role and what does it mean. So what he's talking about there is how that role can help people in the companies that he's invested in. So we look at the events coming up this week. There's an event with Crane Ventures, the GTM Summit tomorrow, which is, so Crane Ventures is a venture capital fund. Then we've got Startup Essentials, which is about building a business budget by Hatch. That's online on Wednesday. We've got another event on Wednesday, which is by Seed Legals, which is how to structure your fundraise, term sheet versus seed fast. Then at Rise on Wednesday evening, there's a Women in Web3 book club. There's a Naya shareholder meetup. So I'm an investor in Naya myself. I can't make it myself on that day because of other things I've got going on. But that'll be a great event. So definitely make sure you pop down to that. Then you've got another event by Seed Fast, which is how to value your startup, at lunchtime on Friday. So those are the events we can see this week. Here's some of the jobs we've got going from our community. So you've got Desi City have got a digital and social content manager opportunity available. Amalia have got a social and media marketing manager job available. Block Dojo have early stage founder, CEO at startup venture available. Odin are hiring for a customer success manager. Y Hungry are hiring for experienced email marketer, mid-senior software engineer, junior operations manager, and a head of finance. Nara are looking for a head of people and talent. Then Hive are looking for a back-end engineer, customer experience manager, front-end engineer, head of capacity and planning, payroll administrator, people operations officer, and principal depot manager. Then AutoGen AI are looking for an account manager, a user coach, and a user coach bid writing professional. And then CSL HR, CHR Life Sciences are looking for a recruitment consultant. So that's everything we covered in the news today. I can also cover the lesson as well. So I'll quickly jump over this. So people who are signed up to the Bay letter, which you obviously should be, if you're watching this, it should be in the comments as well. If not, I changed the format up quite significantly this week. And part of that was because of the anniversary. So the 1 year we've got going. And what this new section does is give practical advice for you, but it's rooted in our experience. So the first one was very meta because it's about the newsletter in the newsletter. And people have been around for a while. You might know that the newsletter used to be called the Bay HQ Roundup, which is boring but functional. And before we built up the credibility to be a bit more playful and call it the Bay Letter, right? Because the Bay Letter is way more memorable. But at the beginning, if you don't have a brand, if nobody really knows who you are, people might be put off by that, right? So at the beginning, when we started, we were looking at a minimum viable product. So minimum viable product, for those who don't know, is just creating something which is the smallest amount of work you can do just to test something, right? So we want to essentially test, is there a market for this? Are people enjoying this? Are people wanting to get involved? And to do that, we use Kajabi. So there's a deal for $100 for 3 months, which is like very cheap, but it also allowed us to host our podcast. It was a website and it was a newsletter all in one. So it made sense to do that at the beginning, right? So we can just have like that cheap deal. So we can build our first website there as well, like I said. So then we moved to Beehive's free plan. So Beehive is what the newsletter is sent from at the moment, which I highly recommend. And I've got an affiliate link, so use that if you want. So Beehive is the best platform for sending newsletters, right? And this comes from my experience of running a 35,000, 40,000 newsletter for Entrepreneur's Handbook. I looked around a lot. So I've interviewed the founder of Beehive, I've interviewed the founder of ConvertKit, MailChimp, and those ones you don't even want to pay attention to, basically. So the free plan on Beehive literally gets 2,500 subscribers, and it has a lot of good deals, looks clean, looks different, makes it stand out. So why do we stay on the free plan though, when I know, for example, there's features in the more paid plans that would actually help us grow faster? Because it's not our priority at that time, right? And it's accepting that there's no point in us paying for something if we're not going to use it at that point. So we hadn't yet hit the problem where we hadn't hit the scale where those limitations are a problem for us. But yesterday I upgraded to the Grow plan for the three main features, right? First, it's extra authors, which means that our assistant can now put together the majority of this newsletter, and that saves Amar an hour a week. So those of you who join on time, you'll notice that often I'm doing the newsletter when you join, because one, it's Monday morning, so I never wake up early enough to actually get it done. But it's a few different things that have to be done. I have to be quite careful, and it's a bit meticulous. So what I can do instead is I can add the extra author. Our assistant can do it while I'm sleeping, so that when I wake up, I just need to add a couple sections and I'm done. And that way, it's way more sustainable. And I get that time back each week, right, to focus on other things. It also allows us to extra segments. So our ambassador program is launching soon. And what we want to have is a separate newsletter, which I can investor update, where the people who are ambassadors can get like a monthly update, which tells them everything they need to know from the back end of the Bay HQ. And it also allows us to do monetization, right? Because we're not for profit, we're self-funded. We don't want to force anybody to pay. But if we use the Beehive Grow plan, we can now accept people to donate to us essentially through that. And if one person donates, that pays for a podcast episode. If 10 people donate, that pays for 2.5 months worth of podcast episodes, right? So it really does help out. So we will upgrade to the scale version later in the year, and that'll be when we launch our referral scheme. So I know exactly what we want to have as prizes in our referral scheme, but I haven't actually built them yet. So if I upgrade to scale, I'm paying extra money for something I'm not going to use yet. So what the lesson from this is that at the beginning, you might have to be a bit scrappy to get things lifted off. You might not have the resources, you don't have a brand, you don't have any goodwill. But once you have those things, then you need to start leveraging them, right? Once you have the energy and the resources and different people involved, then you shouldn't keep doing the same thing you were doing before. Because I could be like, oh, my old tactics are working. But are they optimal? Are they the best thing to do at this particular point in time? So what you should do is regularly examine whether your tactics still fit in with where you are today. And then you can adapt faster without being stubborn, right? Because being stubborn and not changing and not adapting is what will make you lose out. And for for you to be no longer relevant, get you there. Okay, so that's the lesson from that there. So we've got a registration for the fintech event, which is nice. Just come in, I can just see the emails. Okay, so what I can do too, so where is that BayHQ tab? So I always have like a million tabs open. Okay, so if I do view published, and what I actually want to do here. So like I said, it's 1 year since we launched today. So thank you all for being part of this journey and taking the time out of your day to pay attention to us. And hopefully you've learned a lot from what we've been doing as well. So yeah, it's crazy. It's already been a year. I'm just going to update this image and then post it in our WhatsApp group. So if you haven't joined our WhatsApp group as well, make sure you join the newsletter because then you can get access to the WhatsApp group off the back of that as well. So what I want to do is make this width 1,200, 630. Okay. So let's make this. Okay, send it back. I'm just going to work out if I can drop something in the comments or not myself. Yep, I think I can. Okay, so if I post this here, I think that works. Okay, so let's see now. Okay, let's think. I was doing something and I forgot what I was doing. We've got another 20 minutes, so I'm going to carry on talking. And one of the things I'd love to share is, so it's been a year, right? And it's been a year where I haven't taken more than a day off in a row. And that obviously needs to change. So next week, I'm taking the week off. And in my own personal journey is when we had, so if you look at this year, right? So this was meant to launch in August last year. Then my dad passed away. Gerda was getting married in September as well. So we had like a few different events around that time, which meant we had to push back. We actually launched it the week before Gerda's wedding. So it was October 16th. Gerda got married next week, this time last year. And this first year has been a lot of scrappiness, right? It's been a lot of us having to work things out and failing fast and pivoting. And you'll notice if you pay enough attention, there's things that we announce and then they don't quite come through, then we have to cancel it and we just keep moving forwards. And that's a natural part of being a startup. And it sucks sometimes because we can be really confident about something's going to happen and then it doesn't. But that's just the way it is, right? And what we can think about too here is what's been happening for me. So over summer, for me, it was that intense grief period. And then this last month, okay. Okay, so my phone died on me there. And I used my phone camera to do this. But yeah, what's been happening is essentially we've had so much going on. So you see in the last month we've had an event at HPC Innovation Banking. I did the school talks, we had a Sifted Summit, we had the National Franchise Exhibition. I'm now organising TEDx this weekend. And this obviously takes a toll on me, right? And that's one of the interesting things. Like, I'm not trying to pretend to be superhuman here. And Gerda is coming back again full time, which has been a massive help. But there's been a lot of work that's gone into this and a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety that comes with it too. And we're lucky that some of the people in the community are really supportive and helpful and they take up some of the burden. So there's people like obviously Dimple Patel and Jay Gujral on our board who've been very helpful and helping us with that. But even amongst the community, right, there's people who are checking in to see if I'm okay and how I'm doing, right? And that's really important. And that's how this is like ideally in the future, is like you said, where it's about a supportive community, because being a founder is hard and being an investor is hard. There's all these different stresses that maybe not everybody gets. So having a community of people who understand that and can back you really does make a difference. And that's the interesting challenge of being the community builder myself, is making sure that I don't try to present myself as on a pedestal, because I'm not. Like, it's been a hard year. There's been a lot going on. And next week I've got off and I'm completely off. So if you email me next week, you're going to hit getting out of office. If you WhatsApp me next week and it's about work, you're going to get ignored, because I need to be able to switch off. And I think it's something which maybe founders don't talk about enough, is that need to disconnect sometimes, because it's a lot of glorification of like how you love it so much, right? But just because you love it so much, it's not the same as just like you're still human. And this kind of level of stress constantly isn't good for us, right? Like, we need to be taking that time to actually look after ourselves. So next week, I'm going to be going somewhere. I'm not going to post any pictures on social media. I'm not going to do any of that. I'm going to take the time to take it very, very slow, because being bored is really important to our mental health. So by being bored, that's where you can just let your imagination go, right? Like, last week or the week before, I was on 1,000 notifications a day. That's not normal. That's not, like, our human brains aren't designed to deal with that kind of level of volume. And it's burnt me out. Like, I'm hanging on until my trip next week, right? But that's really important that I did that, because if I didn't take that break and just keep saying, oh yeah, I'm strong, oh yeah, I can handle anything, sooner or later, well, it's already starting to hit me, but it's going to hit me worse, right? And it's a lot better to be preventative and not let it get to the stage that I have, rather than try to fight so hard, then be burnt out, and then just be useless for a year, right? And not because when I say useless in terms of not being able to do what you want to work on, or you lose the motivation, right? So it's better to put that block in. I need to re-examine my priorities, my health, my relationships, all of that kind of stuff. And it's very difficult to do that in the busyness of my day to day, especially with like how many people I interact with on a day to day. Right? I'm getting so many different inputs. And there's Bill Gates who does a think week. And that's essentially what my next week is, right? I'm going somewhere, be nice and quiet. I might grab a coffee somewhere, have a journal, and just let myself think without external stimuli. Because one of the challenges in what we're doing today is that there's so many external stimuli, so many data points, there's so many like potential feedback points. There's so many people you should talk to. Oh, you should grab coffee with that person. You should talk to this person, and that's great. But you also need to be able to wind down, and that's what I haven't been very good at. So that's my own personal journey and stuff I'm going to work on. And yeah, let me know in the comments like where you guys are at, like how are you feeling along this journey? Because it's okay to say you're burnt out. So one thing I want to do quickly here is shout out Uma Balachandra, who just became our first paid subscriber of the newsletter. So that's awesome. So he just like what you can do now with the newsletter is you can choose to pay £10 a month, which isn't very much, and you don't get anything for it, to be honest, other than a warm, fuzzy feeling. And we're going to be sending personalized thank you videos to everybody who does that, which is really important. And then from there, we can then grow that out, and it just helps us make us a bit more sustainable. Yeah, so 9 minutes to go. Second. What is on my to-do list for today? So what happens in this 1 hour that I'm on this, I get a load of WhatsApps and lots of emails that I have to try and work through afterwards. But what I first of all do is go for my morning walk, get a coffee, and just relax. Because that's my only time. My only time generally to take a bit of moment with myself is, I say, before 9 o'clock. Whereas after 9 o'clock, everyone expects me to be replying. So I try to take that time a bit slower where I can. Okay. Also, if anybody would love to volunteer for TEDx Chigwell this weekend, let me know, because that would be very helpful for me. Okay. So for the 8 people watching, does anybody want to ask a question? Are you just chilling out? Talk to me. Hi, Uma. Great to join. I also saw your WhatsApp. I just haven't replied yet because while I'm on this. So what actually started it is that so I had a lot of experience with the Silicon Valley space. So during the pandemic, I created a large online presence on medium.com. And what I found is that a lot of Americans were quite open to helping each other out. So I was meeting so many American entrepreneurs, but I didn't basically know anybody from the UK, despite having interviewed the likes of like the Netflix founder, the Twitter founder, these kinds of people. And in the UK, people didn't really seem to be helping each other out. I wasn't invited to any of that stuff anyway. And I met my co-founder. My co-founder at the time, who worked at Kindred Capital. He's at home, he's GP at the moment, but is now coming full time again. And we were basically just complaining to each other of like, why is there nothing where people are connecting? Why is nobody helping each other? And as we go along this journey, then we are discovering more and more communities of different pockets of people trying to do things. But it's never been organized in the way that we're trying to do it and to add that structure. And I think for us, like that's been a huge part of this. It's just like it was a problem we had and it frustrated us. And we know that many other people, whenever we talk to people about it, we did about 3 or 4 months of research firsthand, talking to people like, is there a need for this? Do people want this? And able to saying, yeah, somebody should do this. So we decided that someone should be us. And even when it started, it was meant to just be a side project. Off the back of that, so basically last summer, a big motivator for me is that my dad passed away. So that enabled me to, well, off the back of that, I wanted to make sure that I'm giving back more, paying it forward. So that's why I've gone into it as strongly as I have done. And Gerv has been there every step of the way as well. And we're both very passionate about, especially the new generation of where we didn't know about any of the startup world when we were growing up or even at university. And we want to open that world up for everybody else after us. So thank you for that question. We got 3 minutes left, and then I'm going to grab my morning coffee. So as I mentioned as well earlier, next week I've got the week off, which is my first week off in a very long time. So it should be Gervir taking this over. So you get to talk to him and ask his perspective as well, because often people hear me on the podcast, but I don't get to hear as much from him. So he should be taking this over next week, and he can talk to you about that. We'll also be getting the board members involved and some of the ambassadors involved as well in the future. So it won't just be me talking to the camera. And as with any startup, this is the kind of experimental phase where we're trying to start this idea of these lives in the mornings. We're adapting, we're learning. So at the moment, it's just been me on here. But in the future, what we'll do is be able to open this up a bit and get other people from the community on this too. And we can have a chat and people can just try to join in. It's more like a virtual meetup kind of vibe. But we need to just test that out slowly and then build that up as well. So 2 more minutes to go. And as I mentioned there as well earlier on the episode, this is our anniversary. So quite a big deal for us to make it to 1 year. Obviously, most startups fail before then. Lots of different problems happen. It feels like we're just beginning, to be honest. I think there's a long way we've got to go. But proud of the progress we've made so far. I'm not very good at smelling the roses, but there's so much more to come. Okay, final minute. Okay, so again, thank you everybody so much for joining and listening today. Appreciate the question there from Uma. And Uma, I shouted you out earlier on the podcast, so I didn't think you were on here at that time. Uma has become our first paid subscriber to the newsletter. And what we get for that payment is, well, we're not actually offering much other than people want to support us, right? So anybody who wants to do that, that's a way to do it. And it really helps us out because one person subscribing for a year pays for one podcast episode in the studio. And at the moment, it's been fully bootstrapped. In the future, well, we're working on some of the sponsorship deals at the moment with some of the household names. But in the meantime, that money is really going to help us and to keep growing and to keep making an impact. So thank you so much and take care, everybody.